does he portray the relationship between Imam Ali and Lady Fatima? Christopher Clohessy is trying to criticize this individual by the name of Lamens. Lamens, sorry if I've pronounced it wrong. But what are the issues of contention between them, and how does he respond to it? The incident of Fadak and the whole land being confiscated, being taken, because as we know that the Prophet gifted it to her during his lifetime. It wasn't something that, it's inheritance. But the summon of Fadak is there. So, what does he claim about the thing of Fadak? What does he say? Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers, and welcome to another episode of Faraj Podcasts, brought to you here from the holy city of Qom in Iran, where our aim is to sort of bring to you different students, teachers from the Hawza and other experts, that we feel are relevant to the topics we want to discuss, and sort of bring a discussion that might be a bit more in depth, more detail, more definition to it. And if you have been tuning into some of our earlier episodes, we said that we had a collaboration project with an organization known as Kalima Online. And we were discussing a book by the name of Fatimah, the daughter of Muhammad, by Father Christopher Paul Clohessy. We had an interesting discussion with our guest Alina Kizedi, and that day was just the warm-up. It was just the starters, and I said, let's sort of have another discussion, and so that we can go more deep. And I feel that in general, whether it's the Sunni world or the Shia world, the life of Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet, is something that it's not been discussed in depth, and this topic, we've not done justice to it. So I invited my guest once again, Brother Alina Kizedi, and hopefully we can continue the discussion. So, Brother, Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for your valuable time.
Assalamu alaikum, Zahra. Thanks a lot. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. Your time is valuable, and like I said, that the life of, even though you are bringing the discussion from a book or a perspective of a non-Muslim, but it's really, alhamdulillah, thankful for God that we can discuss the life of this lady in depth. It's something that, even though, the Quran says, God says in the Quran, Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir rahmanir rahim, Kul la as'alukum ajran illa mawaddata fil qurba. So God is telling us, He's telling the Prophet to tell the people that I ask of you no reward except that mawadda, that deep love for my relatives. And we know that Fatima is definitely included. We can debate the wives, and when we look at history, there are many issues surrounding the wives of the Prophet, and I don't want to sort of get into those polemical issues now. But this lady she is a grand personality. Some of the things she's done, and it's very important. So thank you for being with us. So now, obviously, before we started this podcast, we discussed, and you said that in this book, the Fatima, daughter of Muhammad, Christopher Clohessy is trying to criticize this individual by the name of Lamens. Lamens, sorry if I've pronounced it wrong. But what are the issues of contention between them, and how does he respond to it?
So Henri Lamens, the Belgian Orientalist and Jesuit priest, he wrote about Lady Fatima, and he was of the opinion that she was an unimportant or a simple character in the history of Islam. So he was focusing on a few of the sources, few of the Sunni sources, especially Sirah of Ibn Hisham. So he found a very few references to her, and then he concluded that she wasn't very important for the history of Islam. So and then a few more Orientalists, they picked on this, and they continued saying this. So this author tries to negate that, tries to offer a corrective version of that. And he shows us that even in the Sunni corpus of hadith, Fatimah Zahra salamullah alayha is still very important.
Yeah.
And he shows us various incidents in Islamic history to show that she was very important for the Islamic history and for the Prophet as well.
Yeah.
So, for example, he says that in the Battle of Uhud,
Yeah.
she was tending to the wounds of the injured, and when the Prophet of Islam he got injured, she was tending to her wounds. And after the Battle of Uhud, for the Shuhada of Uhud, especially Sayyid al-Shuhada Hamza,
Yeah.
she went to the grave of Sayyid al-Shuhada Hamza, and she used to weep for him.
Yeah.
So these are significant events where he could find a role for Lady Fatima. But other than that, she was present during the Mubahala.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Quran refers to the event of Mubahala, and she was present over there. And the author tells us that even the Sunni sources, the earliest Sunni sources, mentioned that Lady Fatima was present at the Mubahala, and the Prophet took her to the Mubahala with the Christians of Najran. And then the verse of Tahara.
Yes.
Again, the Sunni sources, the earliest of the Sunni sources, they're telling us that she was one of the Ahlul Kitha, Ahlul Kisa, and then she was the person about whom the ayah of Taharat was revealed.
Yes, chapter 33, verse 33. Innama
Yeah,
yuridullah.
exactly. Okay. So these are a few things, and then the title of Sayyidatu Nisa'il Alameen.
Yes.
This was in the Sunni sources.
Okay.
In the earliest of the Sunni sources, not created by the Shias. And that other than that, there were a few other qualities as well that the Sunni sources tell us about her. Her attitude with her father and the respect that the Prophet showed for her.
Yeah.
For example, when the Prophet was sitting at some place and Lady Fatima would enter that place, the Prophet would leave his place for her and would invite her to sit at his place. So these were the things that the author identifies as showing us that not only was Lady Fatima very important for Islamic history, for early Islamic history, her relationships with the Prophet of Islam and with her husband were very good, and she was very respected by these two important personalities. And then whilst saying this, he criticizes those who have said that, for example, she wasn't very important for Islam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question that I want to sort of touch upon is that what is the author's presentation of Lady Fatima, and how is it different to the way we look at her in the traditional Shia Hawza?
Yeah. So when we are looking at Lady Fatima in the traditional Hawza or during the majalis that we hear, we are looking at her mainly as someone to imitate, as someone to emulate, and she's a character that needs to be followed, and her words are hujjah for us, and her behavior is to be followed by us, and we are looking at the sources objectively. Like we are saying that, for example, if Imam Baqir said so and so qualities of Lady Fatima Zahra, for example, if it's written over there that she's Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alameen, that has an objective value for us, and we believe that. But an outsider like this author, when they look at the text, they're looking at it, I should call, from a subjective perspective. They want to see how the Shiis believe it.
Okay.
So he's not saying that I actually believe that she is Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alameen. He's saying that I believe that the Shias believe that she is Sayyidatun Nisa'il Alameen. So that's an indirect perspective at things, and we try to look at her as a role model, as I said. So that's a basic, I think, difference between the two presentations.
I know, because when I was doing some of my own research into her life, there was a book known as Fatima from the Cradle to the Grave.
Yeah, Min al-Mahdi ila Allah.
It's written by Muhammad Kazim Kazvini, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, and it's translated in English by Sheikh
Oh.
Tahir Reza Jafar.
That's good.
And some of the things that I read in that book it's really fascinating. For example, bearing in mind that the Quran in Surah Zariyat tells us that, Allah's telling us that, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We have not created you except that you worship me. And when I saw this particular thing about her, it says that when she used to worship God, this lady Fatimah, the mihrab or in her house, that way she used to worship from, Noor used to come from that.
Yeah.
This is she's not an ordinary lady.
Yeah.
And even, as the Quran says that لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, there is a role model for you in the Prophet. And then we have this narration that is attributed to Imam Mahdi, where he says that the daughter of the Prophet is a role model for me. So that in itself is very symbolic.
Yeah.
So even if somebody is not a Muslim, or they're trying to draw parallels, the fact that you are analyzing Shia Islam and one of the most central figures, the Mahdi, the Messiah, other religions believe in him, is saying that she is a role model for me. We shouldn't be taking her lightly. So the next point that I want to dive into is obviously she is the daughter of the Prophet, but she is also the wife of Imam Ali. Imam Ali, when he was born, there's this belief that Abu Talib, the father of Imam Ali, has he was struggling from poverty, and so different relatives sort of took the children in. Actually, my teacher told me that one of the scholars wrote an article disproving that.
Okay.
And they said that Abu Talib was never poor, basically. This was something brought up by the Abbasid caliphs to sort of put him down, because there was a rivalry between Bani Hashim, and not to say rivalry, but the Khilafat was for them. They wanted it. Whether that's a different discussion, but because they were caliphs later on after Bani Umayyah, they wanted to put him down. So what this scholar basically is trying to say, that actually Abu Talib was a very well-to-do man. He maybe he wasn't the most richest man in Arabia, but he never struggled with poverty. So this aspect that the Prophet because of the poverty, that's is problematic. But yes, we agree that the Prophet he brought up Imam Ali. He fed him himself, and since Imam Ali was a child, so now this person, Imam Ali, is somebody who is not only helping the Prophet in the battlefield, but he is grown up beside the Prophet. The Prophet fed him himself. And after seeing all this, now the Prophet has given his own daughter. He's given a hand to Imam Ali himself. So how does he portray the relationship between Imam Ali and Lady Fatima?
So the author mainly focuses on this. When he talks about the relationship between Lady Fatima and Imam Ali, he's trying to again criticize Lamens, because again Lamens thought that the relationship between these husband and wife weren't very good. So he's trying to criticize that, and he's trying to show that even in the Sunni hadith, the relationship between these two were very warm and very emotional in a way, and they were very close to each other, supporting each other. And he mentions that the hadiths that say that Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha had several suitors when she was getting married, and and the Prophet used to reject them by saying that this matter is by the will of God. And when Imam Ali, he asked her hand in marriage, he asked Lady Fatima, and she agreed to it. So the author mentions this and all of the other ahadith, other reports around this relationship, and then concludes that the relationship was very warm, very close. There were a few incidents reported by the Sunni ahadith, which was being invoked by several Orientalists to say that the relationship wasn't very warm. But the author here tries to downplay those ahadith and tries to interpret them in a way that shows that um, the relationship was still very good.
Okay. So then the next question that I wanted to ask you was that if obviously like you said in the previous podcast that he's being a Catholic, he is drawing a parallel between Virgin Mary, the Virgin Mary and Sayyidah Fatima. And obviously in the Quran we have verses that talk greatly about the Virgin Mary and saying that God chose her, he purified her above the women in her time and above the women of the world. But is he implying that we've this idea of the greatness or the purity of Virgin Mary, is he implying that we as Muslims we've borrowed that? Is there a cut, copy, paste, or what is he trying to do here?
It's a bit complicated. At times you seem to think that the author is implying that this was borrowed from Catholicism. At other times you feel no, he's trying to downplay it. So there are a few similarities between Hazrat Fatimah Zahra and Lady Maryam, even acknowledged by Shia Hadith.
Yeah.
And for example, that the Lady Maryam used to speak to angels.
Yeah.
That is also about Lady Fatima, and she used to speak to angels as well.
Yeah.
And that there was heavenly fruit for them, or heavenly sustenance for both of these ladies.
Yeah.
So there are a number of similarities between these two figures, and the author tries to outline those similarities and isolate those similarities, but in the end he says that I think it's a bit ambiguous, the language that he employs.
Okay.
So at times he's saying that this might have been borrowed from Christianity, and at other times he's trying to invoke the archetypes of Jung, a psychologist. Jung was a psychologist, I believe German.
Okay.
And he had this idea of archetypes, and he compared several stories and creation stories between the different traditions, and he came to a conclusion that humans tend to make up stories that are very similar, and tend to make up personalities and characters that are very similar. So he invokes Jungian archetypes, but that is also very problematic, because we as believers of a revealed religion, we believe that if there is a similarity between Lady Fatimah Zahra and Lady Maryam, that's because Christianity and Islam was revealed by the same God. So and the gifts that were given, the spiritual gifts that were given to these two ladies, was because of the stage of istifa, or the stage of being elevated to God, and the fact that that God chose these women. It was natural for them to have similar characteristics. But in the Shia Hadith, we find the Imams telling us that Lady Maryam was chosen above the women of her time. The Quran says that she was chosen above the women of Alameen. But the Hadith tells us that this Alameen was the people of her own time. But Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alameen, she is chosen above the women of all times. So there are similarities. There are a few differences in the Shia tradition and Shia Hadith. Lady Fatima has a higher status compared to Lady Maryam.
So then the next thing is that what are sort of the strengths of this particular book?
So the book has a few positive points, I believe, especially because it focuses on the Shia Hadith. Before that, you don't find a separate book or an independent work or monograph devoted to the life of Lady Fatima using the Shia sources. So the fact that he is using she sources extensively,
Yeah.
and then showing you that which data and which virtue of Lady Fatima, which spiritual quality of her comes from which ahadith, and then showing you that, okay, the Sunni ahadith, for example, they also hold Lady Fatima in very high esteem.
Okay.
So you get to know where these virtues, these qualities, these characteristics are coming from, which sources are being used.
Yeah.
And then I think the major benefit and strength of this book lies in showing us that even in the Sunni sources,
Yeah.
Lady Fatima had a very high standing.
Okay. Okay. So those are the strengths.
Yeah.
What would you say are the cons and the weaknesses of the book? Because obviously, when we as Hawza students, right? When we look at our own theology, we have a certain set of beliefs, and because of that, we might reject certain personalities, and we accept certain individuals. And Lady Fatima being at the helm, because you have the Prophet, you have the commander of the faithful, Imam Ali, and then you have Sayyidah Fatima there, and then after that we have the rest of the 11 Imams as the the central figures. So sometimes this can create a challenge for us, but and then when we present these views to the outer world, it might seem a bit strange. But what do you think would be the the weaknesses of this book, if any?
Yeah. So this is a bit difficult and a bit of a challenging question, and when it comes to books like these, especially when those deal with historical issues. So so there's a very thin line actually between what is theologically acceptable and what is not, and because of that, the language being used by books like these can sometimes be ambiguous. So for example, I would mention only 2 points which I found theologically unacceptable over here. So the first being that the author, as I said, tries to show us why the image of Lady Fatima is has supernatural characteristics amongst the Shias. So he tries to analyze it and says that because of Karbala and after Karbala, the Shias, for them, Karbala became a very important issue. And it became the central focus of their piety and the central focus of their identity. And because of Karbala, the image of Lady Fatima, it grew distinctively. And then she attained cosmic proportions, for example. And he believes that supernatural qualities attributed to her was because of the incident of Karbala. And in this, he's drawing a parallel between Christianity and Christianity's views of Jesus Christ and the relationship that he has with Lady Maryam. So he's saying that because in Christianity, Jesus Christ, because of Jesus Christ and his crucifixion, Lady Maryam, his mother, attains a very high characteristics. So in the same manner, because of Karbala and the sacrifice of Imam Hussein, Lady Fatima attains high characteristics and spiritual elevation. So I find that a bit problematic, because the attributes that we have in the hadith, for example, her ability to intercede on behalf of the believers, this according to the author is something supernatural. Or that or that when she was born, there were 4 heavenly ladies which came to assist Lady Khadija when Lady Fatima was being born, or that she was conceived after the Prophet ate the heavenly fruit. So all of these characteristics and virtues that we find about Lady Fatima, these are in the ahadith. So we cannot accept that these were later additions or interpolations. The author says that because of an advancement in comprehension, in human comprehension or theological development, these attributes were added later on.
Okay.
But that cannot be true, because we have ahadith from Imam Sadiq, Imam al-Baqir, telling us about the virtues of this lady.
Yeah.
And we have several paths of transmission to verify this.
Yeah.
So these cannot be later interpolations.
Yeah.
And we cannot believe that the ahadiths were forged for this.
Yeah.
Because the hadiths are a lot. If it
Okay.
had been a singular hadith, for example, you could have said that. But the hadiths about her intercessory powers, about her spiritual virtues, like the ones you mentioned.
Yeah.
So these are a lot. We cannot say that these were added later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of the problems that I thought this book had and this presentation had. Interestingly, the the author says that I don't take this as an innovation.
Okay.
So he said that although these were added later on, I don't take this as innovations.
Yeah.
So the reason is he's saying that because theology advances over time,
Yeah.
it's natural for these characteristics to be added. In fact, he's saying that the Christians have added a lot to the image of Lady Maryam.
Okay.
So he says that Lady Maryam in the Gospels, she doesn't have a lot of characteristics in the Gospel, supernatural characteristics.
Yeah.
But over the period of, over the centuries and throughout history, more spiritual qualities were added to her.
Yeah.
So for Christianity, that might be okay, because they have this idea of papal infallacy and the church being able to add doctrines later on.
Yeah.
Because but for the Shias, as soon as the ghaibat starts,
Yeah.
and as soon as the occultation starts, we are in a way cut off from revelation and from the divine intervention. So we cannot add attributes later on. So I thought that was one of the problems that the book had. And basically, as I said, I'm repeating myself, we have sound, reliable ahadith from Imams Al-Baqir and As-Sadiq telling us about the virtues of Lady Fatimah Zahra, about her intercession on behalf of the believers on the day of judgment. So for example, that hadith that says that Lady Fatima is going to pick her followers and the Shias on the day of judgment and take them to the paradise.
Yeah.
And she's going to pick her like a chick or a chicken picks good seeds from the bad ones.
Okay.
So this very hadith is by Imam al-Baqir.
Okay.
So this couldn't be added later on. So the author is saying that these hadiths, for example, were added when the Shias gained consciousness of the Karbala event.
Yeah.
And so this is what I found problematic. Another issue was about the quality of not seeing menstrual blood.
Yes.
So so in the hadith we have that she's called Batul
Yes.
and Azra.
Okay.
So it literally means a virgin.
Okay.
But the hadith interprets it as saying that, and tells the followers that it means that she doesn't see menstrual blood.
Okay.
This author tells us that the reason could have been that she was suffering from a medical issue.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah, so that's really problematic theologically. So if you want to justify or explain away all of these qualities in this manner, then you won't be left with any of the supernatural qualities attributed to the Aima or to the Prophet. So that was one of the issues. Again, we have a lot of hadiths telling us why this quality was attributed to Lady Fatima, and those hadiths are sound and reliable. So these were the problems that I could find with this book.
Okay. And I think it's rather strange.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the Quran, we know that both the Shia and the Sunni agree that when verse 33, chapter 33, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ tathira, she was definitely there.
Yeah.
We might argue about the wives. That's a different issue. She is definitely there. In the verse of Mubahila, when it says anfusana wa anfusakum, and it says nisa'ana wa nisa'ukum, it's plural, but there's only one woman.
Yeah.
Just her.
Yeah.
Then there are other verses of the Quran that say that other than the prophets, there is a sort of I won't say divine revelation, but there is an ilham. So a form of knowledge that comes directly from God into the hearts of certain individuals. For example, the mother of Musa is there, right? And there is another verse that I actually came across yesterday. I've sort of forgotten which verse, but I remember if somebody is looking at the Quran, which was sort of done by Usman Taha, that particular font, page 267, it's definitely there. I remember seeing it. So the Quran doesn't negate the aspect that an individual who's not a prophet can't have these divine abilities.
Yeah, well, hayna ila Musa.
Yeah. So it doesn't negate it, right? And it's directly there. At the same time, the issue of, so you can't exactly call it a concoction.
Yeah.
Because number one, the Prophet, all his narrations were burnt. Number two, when Imam Ali got the caliphate, that caliphate 4.5, 5 years was plagued with war.
Yeah.
So he was occupied in war. Then you had Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, who was censored by other individuals. Fourth Imam, very difficult time. Again, Banu Umayyah, Banu Abbas. But fifth Imam and sixth Imam, right, Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq alayhim salam, they had a lot of freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we have authentic narrations, right, that say that this lady possesses these characteristics, which are in line with the Quran, because we are saying that somebody who's not a prophet possesses these abilities. The Quran is pointing to the same thing as well. And then you say things that, oh, she's tathir, she's mutahhar, right? Then it's very strange that somebody can say that, this could be a concoction, whether he says that or not, and, correct me if I'm wrong. But then after the Prophet dies, you have the issue of fadak.
Yeah.
So for him to say that she gains centrality after Karbala is not very accurate.
Yeah.
Because even, we as Shia say, oh, she was martyred in a certain way. We have the incident of the door, and that's a point of contention. But the incident of Fadak and the whole land being confiscated, being taken, because as we know that the Prophet gifted it to her during his lifetime. It wasn't something that, it's inheritance. But the summon of Fadak is there.
Yeah.
So, what does he claim about the thing of Fadak?
Yeah.
What does he say?
So about the sermon of Fadak, he doesn't give us, to the best of my knowledge, and as far as I remember, he doesn't give us a lot about the sermon of Fadak.
Yeah.
In the appendix, he's translated the sermon of Fadak, and only in passing he says that because it has some developed theological teachings in it.
Yeah.
The first portion of the sermon of Fadak talks about Tawheed, prophethood, Qiyamah. So because of that, he's saying one would, I'll read the lines. The ihtijaj, the sermon itself, contains a developed and at times technical theology. The reader's first reaction might be to wonder if the text represents a precise record of the words spoken by Fatimah, or a redaction and embellishment of what was perhaps originally a much simpler appeal for justice by the justifiably distraught young woman.
Yeah.
So he's just implying that this could have been added later on, but he doesn't really enters into a full-fledged debate over what he's trying to say. So I checked this, and the sermon of Fadak has 25 isnad.
Yes.
So when you have that many isnad,
it,
according to the terminology of hadith, so it reaches istifada.
Yeah, it's not khabarul wahid anymore.
Yeah, it's not khabar wahid. So with that many isnad, with that many paths of transmission, you reach the belief that this was actually issued by her.
This did definitely happen in
Yeah,
history.
this definitely happened in history. And Sunni and Shia sources both have narrated this. And that also points to the fact that this really happened and this sermon was delivered by her. And interestingly, the Shias record this sermon through Lady Zainab.
Okay.
So Lady Zainab is the narrator of this khutbah in the Shia tradition. But in the Sunni tradition, in addition to Lady Zainab, the wife of the Prophet Aisha, she's narrating this sermon as well. So that creates a different route of transmission. So with that many routes, different routes of transmission, you reach this itminan, you reach this certainty that it was indeed issued by Lady Zainab, Lady Fatimah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should wrap up, but I think the last point that I wanted to say is that when I was looking at the book Fatimah from Cradle to the Grave, he mentions that other than Fadak, she had seven or six other gardens.
Oh, really?
From which she had an income.
Great.
So Fadak is not just a simple appeal for, give my property back.
Yeah.
The way she talks, the way the words are styled.
Yeah.
And she does bring the issue of imama. There is one line in there, where she says, Ja'alallahu imamatana, Ja'alallahu, and there's a few things, and she says imamatana, etc.
Yeah.
Wata'atana, our imama and our obedience. She does say that, and she says, this is something from God, not something that, we as Shias have concocted.
Yeah.
So, it's something that, perhaps, others or those who are reading this book should sort of look into it. So I think we can wrap up today because it's gone, I can see the duration has gone to around more than 30 minutes. But, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Syed, it was definitely an honor, that we could come, sit down and, on this afternoon record this tradition. So thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers as well. So, if you have any comments, any questions, put them in the questions below. Like and subscribe to our channel, Faraj Media English. And, we have a kids channel, Faraj Kids, where, we've uploaded some cartoons, many cartoons and puppet shows as well. And, stay tuned, hit the bell icon, subscribe to both our channels and, pray for us. And, inshallah, we look forward to bringing you more content as well. So, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.